a couple of things that we're going to do. I'm going to talk first about the five-step case method. And then what I'm going to want each of you to do is we're going to get you into your groups, and I'm going to want you to work through this case in the time that we have. And I'm going to want you to come up with what's going on in the case itself. So let me go over to the website and share that screen. And if you will look, what we're going to be doing, let me scroll down, is we're going to work on this right here. Is we're going to talk about how to analyze a case, but then also what we're going to do is this case right here called LG Smartwatch. And this is a small case. It's only like 10 pages, but it'll give you a taste of what case study is like. And it'll be a nice way to kind of get into the subject. So what is it when you have a case like this? You might see it in the book, and you will see it from the examples that I have. Well, a case study generally is a real life example of something that really happened, generally businesses that are in the middle of a particular point in their lives where they have to generally make choices. Now, many times the choices aren't exactly right in front of you. Many times you have to dig through the particular pieces of information, just like we had to do with that Business Week article on, oh my gosh, I'm going slipping. You remember Martha Stewart, forgive me. Oh, my memory. Anyway, this is a mini case or a smaller case than some of the ones that you will find, but this is about the length of the one that you're going to work on for your cases at the end. This case has most of the information built into it, so you won't have to go out looking. But I will say this, on your cases, the one that you have in your book, I'm going to want you to do some research. So if any of you have ever gone on to library.appstate.edu, you will use that, or you will use Google Scholar to do the looking for your journal articles to support your decisions, okay? The cases that we're going to be doing are actually cases that are in fixed point in time. And so one of the things that I recommend also is to avoid looking forward. In other words, look at the information at the moment in time that the cases are being presented. Sometimes the cases have basically solved themselves, but it doesn't necessarily mean that however they were solved were the best ways that they could have been done. So I want you to kind of put yourself in whatever day or years that those particular cases are going to be. So what are the cases that we're going to work on? So the cases that we will be asking you to look at will be in the back of your book. And so the cases are Walmart dominates, Tesla races ahead, Google searches, Uber drives, and Apple bites back. Now, there are a couple of three other cases as well, but I would like for your groups to decide which one of these cases that you would like to pursue. Each one of these cases is really good, okay? And most of these, or excuse me, these cases are literally written for, I believe, 2021 when OC released this book. By the way, this book to me is outstanding. If you want to keep a book on marketing strategy, if you've bought this one, this is the one that you want to keep on your shelf because you'll refer to it again and again. So, how do we go about looking at cases? So, we're going to go to this link. Where are you, David? How to analyze a case. Okay. So for any of you who have not done a case before, you got a taste of it the last time when we did the Martha Stewart. Well, this is going to be where you're really going to get into the nuts and bolts of doing a case. This is that sausage making that has to go on to be able to both diagnose what's going on, the diagnosis and the synthesis, putting the facts together and giving them into some random order. So if you would please read this case method, it was part of what was the assignment, but I'd ask you to read it again. And I'm just going to go over points on this particular site that I want to emphasize to you. All right. So why do you use this? And even more so, why do you have a framework? Okay. So the first reason is that the framework provides a comprehensive coverage of the topics and the issues involved. We use the frameworks like these because they help us to arrange all of the pertinent facts in a logical, consistent order. Many times without a framework, there may be some issues that you might overlook, or you may consider things that are not pertinent for the time. And so that's one of the reasons why you use this particular framework. The next is that your group members, you and each other, have a commonality way of communicating with each other. In other words, you're all on the same ground level. You all have the same things in which to work from. So it allows you to be able to collaborate in a much easier frame. The last is the consistency of analysis. This is a blueprint to approach situations in a consistent way every time. And it's a very good aid for you being able to start up and being able to analyze cases efficiently from the very beginning. Will you add things later? The answer is yes. I have changed this framework over years because I've found that certain things I feel are more valuable than others. And so I find certain things I want to emphasize a lot more. So in the 5-step analysis framework, there's 3 things also that I want you to understand when you're doing cases. The first is no one can analyze a case after reading it one time or doing analysis during the first reading, okay? So my recommendation is to first read the case. And I will be honest, I take notes along the way, and I can't help it because that's what I've learned during the years. So see, here I am violating my first thing. That's the way it does. I would recommend you read the case, have a highlighter, and whenever you find something significant, highlight it, okay? The next time you read it through, you might find that there's even more things that you might have missed that you're able to more emphasize when you see all of those things come together, all right? The next is don't get trapped into thinking that the answer is hidden somewhere in the text, all right? Maybe there's not a single answer. Maybe there's multiple issues that when we change one thing, may in essence may change something else. And so don't feel like a single strategy or a single solution is appropriate for everything, all right? Remember that when you read the cases, each case is unique. And so I put my little notes here is make an effort to put yourself in the shoes of the decision maker in the case. My recommendation for you as a group is I want you as a group to think of yourselves as the rainmakers, okay? So when you're coming in and you're creating this case, what I want you to do is think of yourself as being an outside team coming in, and you're being given this information by the corporations that the case is about. And so you're coming in, you're going to be talking to these individuals, board of directors, whatever, and you're going to tell them what's going on and how to fix it. If you put yourself in that mindset, it'll help you along, right along. Role playing is a great way to be able to handle this. So I would use that as kind of a framing, okay? So when you do the case, you're going to have multiple parts, all right? So the first thing you're going to do is what's called a situation analysis. And so the situation analysis is basically the SWOT analysis plus extra, all right? So the SWOT analysis, what we did in the last class, is the first thing that you as a group need to put together, all right? After you put together the SWOT analysis, the first thing you need to do, of course, is look at the strengths and weaknesses. Look at the negative factors. See if the negative factors can be paired off. Realize this also, that it's very possible that something you consider to be a strength can also be a weakness as well. Remember that you're working with limited resources and that you need to be able to focus on the things that will maximize your chances of success. Think of the internal environments inside the organizations or the things that you can change. Look outside in the external environment and recognize them for the things that you can't change, all right? So remember, the first thing, like I said, is a factor can be both a strength and a weakness or an opportunity and a threat. It all depends on how you want to be able to analyze it. Next, remember that opportunities may not necessarily be possibilities. It all depends on the internal strengths that you have, whether or not you have the resources to be able to exploit them. And finally, as I said, is that you have to make sure that you put the case situation in the time that the solution actually took place. Okay. The next thing is realize that you will have assumptions and missing information when you're working through, all right? And there is a tendency to do your best to fill those gaps. Remember that it is important for you to determine what is an assumption and what is a fact. And sometimes that can be very difficult to do, especially if it is a strongly expressed opinion that from an industry leader that you think you can trust. Erica, it's perfectly fine. I just saw it, no problems, okay? The next is the statement of the problem. The identification and presentation of the problems facing the company is the most critical part of the framework. You're coming up with an analysis that states what is the core issues that this case deals with. And remember this, is that when you're looking through things, you remember our Business Week article on Martha Stewart, symptoms are not the problems themselves. Because an individual has 103-degree fever, that isn't what the ailment is. That is a symptom of the ailment. And so many times you'll have to make second-order calculations. In other words, you'll have to take the information and through reflective learning, get generalized, I hate to even use the word assumptions, but make generalized observations from what you see, okay? So the example is that they give, of course, is that wonderful thing that we always tell children to ask is why? Well, it's still here again. Given a statement like why the sales have declined, you would ask why the sales have declined. They decline because there's too many sales territories. Why are there so many territories unassigned? They're because the sales force turnover is doubled. Well, why is the sales force doubled or turnover is doubled? And then see, you start out with the saying that the sales force or that the sales have declined, and you ultimately find out that there's a problem with the sales force compensation plan. That's where the key issue are. And so once you state the problem, then you have to start developing alternatives. You have to come up with a series of strategic alternatives that have a reasonable potential for solving the problem or problems. All right. It's difficult sometimes you might generate, like they say, a laundry list of a lot of items. But the important thing to filter through always is, does it match your strengths that you have in your corporation? And can you actually finish this and make this work? And finally, what you do is you evaluate the alternatives and then come up with general recommendations. And the final criterion is, how do the alternatives coincide with the SWOT analysis? Are you answering the questions that the original SWOT analysis brought up? And so answering all of those questions, that start with the SWOT is ultimately the reason that you're in this in the first place. Okay? All right. So that's how we're going to go about analyzing the case. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to break you up into your groups. And I sent an email this morning. If you wanted to download and look at the case already, that's fine. If you're going to do it now, that's fine as well. This is the case, the LG smartwatch. And so what I would like you to do is read it through. I would like you in your groups to create a SWOT analysis. And I would like you also to come up with what you consider to be the central issues and how to go about solving those issues as well. Okay? Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to start putting you in your groups. And these are the groups, and I will start breaking you up now into the groups. So give me a few moments and I will start doing that. So, okay. So, okay. 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 And let's. All right, I got it all right. Okay, I'm going to open all the rooms and put you in the rooms. You can text me or I'll be right here. So let's take about 30 minutes to go through, and starting now.
Hey Adam, haven't heard from you yet. How are you doing?
Oh,
Can you hear us?
hey, Adam. Um,
Yeah, I'm in the meeting in the other one, but my computer over there is not working. I was hoping you might could invite me again. I'm going to leave the meeting.
sure. No, let me see which. Okay, you're in room 4.
Group 4, yeah.
Yeah, try that.
Please.
Okay.
So we'll start talking about this. So the corporation is LG Electronics. Would anyone like to start out? What is the paper about? So what is the central issue that they're discussing?
The launch and establishing the watch phone in the Canadian market.
Right, exactly. Succinct, right to the point, Adam. Exactly. All right. So they're looking at establishing the LG watch phone to the Canadian market. All right. So if we're to be looking at the product itself, what are some of the unique characteristics about this particular watch? So is it more than a watch?
Yes,
What is it?
it's basically a cell phone on your wrist. It's got all the
Exactly.
capabilities that you would typically have in a phone.
Exactly. And it is. So this is one of those. Remember, we talked about innovation in the last one. This is what I would call a disruptive technology. It's where you've got kind of the mind melding of two different kinds of technologies that are significant and substantial and create this disruption in the marketplaces that they're at. So, what are the strengths of it being a cell phone? What are its strengths as a cell connection?
It's wearable and therefore easier to carry with you everywhere than having something in your pocket.
Absolutely. That's a valued asset. What is the disadvantages of using a watch phone versus a cell phone? Would anyone like to say?
Sometimes you look goofy if you're like trying to walk around like this and talk like this. Talk. It says, I don't know, like tuning in Tokyo or something on your wrist, maybe.
Well, and it's also you don't have the keypad, so it's harder to communicate if you need to use your hands with it.
Right. I mean,
And
that's a good
and,
point.
and
What else?
I don't remember if 2008 they had pictures or video on phones, but lack of
Yeah,
that
you
would
have to
be.
kind of like.
Well,
That's
it said it would have video call capability, which I find odd for your wrist, because then you have to constantly hold your
Right.
wrist a certain way to, you
Yeah.
know, make eye contact.
exactly.
It's only getting your eye.
Right.
So not all of these, you're right. There's a certain amount of quirkiness that comes with a watch, cell, whatever you want to call it, watch phone. Okay. So it's the quirkiness kinds of leads it more towards a specialized feel if you want to think about it as an item, in terms of the general population of who would use that. So what are you think besides that, maybe some product limitations, what other some difficulties in establishing this particular market?
So it mentions that LG is a Korean company and they don't have the brand awareness that some other companies do, like Apple. And they kind of have to compete with competitors that are much more well known and more established.
That's very true. In the electronic industry, LG is very known, but LG in the watch and in the cell phone industry, it doesn't have the coverage, even then or ultimately later. That's true. Any other difficulty in the market?
Something we talked about is just like, how do you convince someone you already dropped $1,000 on your cell phone? Now put a watch on your wrist too. It's
Yes.
repetitive in a way.
It is, and that's one of the other difficulties about it is finding its value proposition is exactly that. How much did they say the phone? What you said it was like over 1,000, right?
Yeah, it's
It's 1,200, yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
1290.
lot of money, no doubt about it. So, what about the carriers that are in Canada? Which ones are that you can select from?
There were many there. I mean, they
Right.
talk about Kudu, Virgin,
Right.
Rogers, Bell, TELUS.
Right. They're not, yeah, TELUS is also a European cell phone. So like if you go to Europe, it'll switch from AT&T to TELUS or whichever one you have. So TELUS is Canadian and it is European. That's correct. So you really don't have a lot of choices in cell phones in terms of the connections. So anybody got what they would consider possible solutions to this?
There's
Yeah.
kind of two ways to go about it. You can either try to appeal to like the techies and make it super exclusive and have only one distributor, and you have to pay out of pocket, and to make it kind of, only available to the people who are like super into tech. Or you can try to penetrate the market more broadly and do all of them and do a contract and try to get those initial like people who don't want to spend that much in. However, with the watch, I think you will have to do the techies because it's just so weird, especially at this time.
I do kind of agree with you as well. It is kind of a nerdy like kind of thing. And if you remember the fusion of innovation, you've got that 2.5% that will buy just about any electronic, technology. Getting past that 2.5%, there's your difficulty. And that's the big question.
I think the
Because-
challenge there is that if there are others like Apple, even then, they're telling them mainly they're gonna release something similar, then I think going towards one group of individuals, that the techies, the ones that are usually use these electronics, may be too narrow of a mindset. And you probably just need to try to reach more masses by introducing it at a lower price, and use different type of marketing tactics, I mean, but using one of the major telecommunications providers, and then what Luke was saying was perhaps cutting a deal with those that are just gaining market share, like Kudu and Virgin, in order to offer better plans, and more flexible options for people. But it's definitely partnering with one of the major ones, but at a lower price.
Yeah, and that's a very reasonable plan because one of the other things, even in the cell industry, in 10 to 15 years ago, and certainly we can see this, is that the technology evolves very rapidly. And so if you're looking to get a payback on this technology, I'm with you there, Erica. You need to be able to generate significant sales as quickly as you possibly can. And if it means taking a loss on the phone, you might even have to do that. And so yeah, it's a very delicate balance.
Yeah, and Dr. Shells, I kind of went along the same way with Erica and Emma, and we talked about it in our group. I think that he has to look at two approaches. One, does he want to be a copycat and try to capture the market through price? Or does he want to be innovative and really do some research and see what the consumers are saying they like and add that to their value proposition, create new USP so he has a premium or competitive landscape or competitive market product for the market. So that's what we essentially came up to. Is he's just got to rifle in on what aspect does he want to be? Does he want to be a copycat and driven by price, or does he want to start trying to penetrate the market, which could broaden out even further and create some new USPs that's going to drive the market like we see today.
Yeah, and many times you'll have an item that's really there to, as a penetration item. It's there to be able to create a defined product, I mean, a defined market. And I can certainly look at the way, if you want to go back to modern, look at the iWatch. You find that actually the iWatch initially did not were not generally accepted. Let's just say it was not near the terms of the projected sales that they were going to get. But what's interesting is when Fitbits were introduced in around 2015, 2016, we started to see direct purposes for having something strapped to your arm.
Mhm.
And that kind of involved the electronic watch industry a little bit. And you can say this, and you can see certainly that the Apple Watches have evolved in that kind of direction, where they're built for purposes beyond just merely telling time. As a matter of fact, that's the sales parts of it. So this cell watch thing, okay, the question that you always have to have with a product is, what is its purpose? You know, so yeah, those are hard questions to answer.
Well, I just
So,
realized too that this watch is almost double the price of the most expensive Canadian phone that they have listed, which is $699. And I don't think this watch is doing much more than what the phone was doing.
so how many would think it'd be a good idea not to launch? Yes.
Yeah.
But now this is kind of a trick, okay? Um, one of the things when you get cases like this is you need to consider all options, even the option of saying this needs to be done at another time, okay? You know, you will probably not get one of these cases, all right? Because this is a little twist. But just remember, sometimes the status quo can be the best answer, all right? Or
Mhm.
looking for more information until you can make a better choice. So that's kind of the other reason I like showing this case is quite simply is open yourself up to all alternatives, even not running, all right? I had a student who was at Hickory when I taught in Hickory, and he was a gentleman who was a businessman, been in for 20 years. He was Filipino, English was a second language, but tests were really not good. But his case studies were so impeccably brilliant that I I could not give him anything but an A, even though his tests were C level. The work that he did on his case were just extraordinary.
Wow.
All right, this case, he did this brilliant observation of who in the world, a student right out of MBA school, such an important job to do. And he was so brilliant that I 100. It was that good. And the kind of the reason I'm giving you this kind of example is consider everything. All right. Any possibilities on the table. And that's kind of one of the things that I want you to take, if not with the cases, but in real life. All right. And when you're making your choices past your master's degree, realize that any choice is a good one. You know, when you're first considering things, nothing should be left off the table, including deciding maybe you need to hold up for a second. Okay. Now you won't get that with these cases, but I just wanted to bring that to you. Okay. Okay. So very good. A good conversation. Is there anything else anyone would like to say about this or anything else? Okay. So what is going to be the rest of marketing strategy? What have you got the rest to do? So what I'm going to do is you'll be getting the list tomorrow, and you can start considering now what cases you and your group would like to tackle. So 1 second, let me pull up something here. Okay. So your final assignment in this class is that you will be performing a case study on 6 cases that are listed in the book. I've only got 5 listed now, but you can make your choice of these 5 or any of the others remaining in the book. What are you going to create? So, excuse me. This is the format of what you're going to produce for your final grade on a case. Now, the first off is there will not be a document. They say there's a document listed here. I'm going to want you and your group to do a PowerPoint presentation on the case that you choose. The presentation is to go no more than 30 minutes. 30 minutes is the cutoff. And so this is going to be the format of the case. Just as we did tonight, I'm going to want you and your group to get together and do the very same thing we did here, and then present it in much more detail. And that's what you'll be working on in the last 6-7 weeks for your presentation. So you're going to create a marketing plan, and you're going to bring up the following formats, and this is the format of the marketing plan. So the very first slide, 1 or 2 slides, is what is known as the executive summary. You'll have a first slide that talks about whatever case you're on, the group members, and the group letter. Right after that, you're going to have the executive summary. So the executive summary is the section where all the critical issues that are faced with the company in the case are listed here, and the recommendations. So if any of you have ever had to do an executive plan for whatever companies you're in, generally what you'll start with is an executive summary. It could even be called an abstract. And this is where you're going to lay out the details of the detailed plan that you're handing in, all right? Most individuals, the upper people, will read the executive summary and many times not anything else. The executive summary is a synopsis of your marketing plan, the overview, including the goals and objectives, the elements, implementations, and outcomes. And this is to be the last part of the marketing plan you write, okay? Write your executive summary after you've done everything else. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do after the executive summary is you're going to do an overview, which will have a brief history of the company, details of information, critical dates, those kind of things. And then what you're going to be doing is you're going to be starting to talk about the critical issues that will be addressed in the plan, or where that company is at this moment in time. After this, you will give out your SWOT analysis. The SWOT analysis will contain the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. After the SWOT analysis, you're going to talk about the competitive advantages of this particular corporation. All right. What are the capabilities and competitive advantages that your particular corporation has? And sometimes it's very difficult to know exactly where the strength of a corporation is. All right. When anybody who does Tesla, the core strengths in there, you got to do a little digging. All right. I'll just give that as an example. Apple. With Apple, I want you to understand what is the core benefit that Apple gives to its consumers. You know, strip it past the physicals and get to what makes corporations valuable. The next is, what are the inherent weaknesses in the corporations that inhibit them from meeting customer needs? And can they be fixed? Remember that the opportunities and the threats are the external. They are the macroeconomic factors. And so anything you can't change is either an opportunity or a threat. After you do the competitive advantages, you start to develop the strategic focus. What is the overall focus of the marketing plan for the next few years? All right. Remember that strategies can be broad and that they are over a period of time. It's the objectives, all right? Your objectives, which are usually number driven and are measurable for success or failure, because generally they're talking about a certain number of months or years in order to achieve that, okay? And so talk about your strategic focus, set your goals and objectives, and then you finish with a summary, all right? You will each in your group get the same grade. For group participation at the end of the semester, I will have an online peer-to-peer evaluation so that you can anonymously evaluate your group members, okay? Let's see, I've got a couple of chat questions. Okay, yes. Yeah, it does remind you of Google Glass, I agree. Are there any general questions that anyone has?
I
Yes,
have one, Dr. Childs. So on the case studies, is each group only getting one case, or are we getting multiple cases?
each group gets one case. You
Okay.
focus on that one case, and only the group that is presenting during those weekends are the ones that has to show up, all right?
Okay.
So in the last 3 weeks of when we're doing group presentations, you only show up when your group shows up to do the presentation, okay? I would like it to be live. I understand if you have to record, it's okay. Just some recommendations. One, don't read from the slides. Okay? I want you to be able to think on your feet, all right? Very rarely when you're in a corporate field, are you able to record something, okay? Was there a question? Okay, no.
I have another question,
Yeah, Larry.
but I don't think it was my static coming through. So you answered the first question. The second one is when I look through the assignments on the side, you have group E twice. So which one?
I
That
will
was
correct this, all right? Yeah, I mean, I've got a,
So I that was my question, was when are you presenting? Because I don't think we're group D is
I
not.
will- that's mine. I'll take care of that. Don't worry. I will distribute all of this after this, okay?
okay.
Well,
Yeah, perfect.
and on that note, are the groups set? Because as of right now, I think Luke and I have been on our own this whole time. I mean,
Okay.
I know we haven't even started, but the last 2 meetings, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure that we actually have more people on our team.
Yes. Yeah, unfortunately, there are at least 2 or 3 of your members that cannot come, in other words, be here. And so what you'll have to do in your groups is find some way of interacting with them, all right? And if there's any difficulties with that, well, that's what the peer analysis, the end of the year group analysis is for. So you can evaluate your peers. Many online individuals, have to be able to deal with these things. And it's just one of the things that you do when you're dealing with a master's degree and you're doing it online. So I expect active participation from your other group members. And if any of you have any, problems or issues, let me know. Morgan, do you have your hand up? Okay, all right.
I have a question.
Yes,
So when are we gonna meet next time? Right now on the schedule it says April 2nd, which is Tuesday, but is it gonna be moved on April 1st, Monday as well?
the schedule will be redesigned. We've effectively met for the last time as a group, as a group together. And so the next ones that I'll start to send out will be those invitations for groups to be able, to come online. So this is in effect your last group together, okay? The next ones will be where the groups will do their presentations, okay? So just to reiterate again, make sure it's 30 minutes, no more. Make sure it uses the format that I have listed. We'll probably do 2 groups on each weekend, and then I will have them graded by the end of the weekend. So like, excuse me, if it's a Monday, I'll have it graded within 48 hours. I have it graded on a Wednesday, okay?
How are we, so we can just choose any case from the book?
Yeah, well, the first, whoever, wants to do one first wins. So I mean, the first come, first serve, all right? So
We discussed doing Uber, so do we email you?
yes, yes.
Okay.
First email wins, okay? So just the ones that I've listed online are Google, Tesla, Uber, let's see, Walmart, and then Apple, all right? But there are at least 7 or 8 other cases in the book. But those to me are the substantial ones, the very meaty ones, okay? And so whichever ones you decide as a group, however I get them received, that's how I will assign. In essence, you choose, okay? Okay? All right.
And do we just email you to let you know what we want to do?
That's all I got to do, Arthur. That's all I got to do. Just email me. And the first one who emails me, if someone emails me and says Uber and another group wants Uber, I'm gonna say, well, it's already been taken. Okay.
Sent that email, so I think.
I already sent the email for the Uber one. Just so I was on it.
Team,
Another-
for the win.
Don't choose Uber, okay? That's the next question. All right. But they're all good. Oh, Uber's a meaty one. Yeah. Wait till you get into it. It's a trip. Anyway. So anything else? All right, folks. Look, thanks a lot. I hope you all have a great night. If you have any issues during the cases while you're going through it, please let me know. And I will post this video. It'll be up online in the morning, okay?
Thank you, sir. You have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Good night.